Arnold woke up at 5 a.m., and immediately he knew something was wrong. His right shoulder was on fire. Not a dull ache, not a minor pain. A sharp, searing sensation that made him catch his breath. He tried to move his arm, and it wouldn't respond the way it should. The range of motion was severely limited. The strength was gone. He sat up slowly, carefully, assessed the damage. His entire right shoulder was swollen, visibly swollen. The kind of swelling that didn't happen overnight unless something serious had occurred. Arnold tried to remember if he had fallen, if he had slept wrong, if something had happened during training yesterday. Nothing. He had trained lightly yesterday. Nothing that would cause this. It was 6 hours before the biggest competition of his life. The Mr. Olympia Championship. The show where he would defend his title. The event that defined everything. And his shoulder, his dominant arm, the arm that was central to all his poses, the arm that showed his incredible biceps and shoulder development, was broken. Arnold got out of bed carefully, looked in the mirror. His right shoulder was grotesquely swollen. The muscle was inflamed. The joint looked wrong. This wasn't something he could hide. This wasn't something he could train through. This was serious. He called the team doctor immediately. The doctor arrived at Arnold's hotel room within 30 minutes. His name was Dr. Patterson. He had been with Arnold for years. He knew Arnold's body. He knew how to assess injuries. Dr. Patterson examined the shoulder carefully, moved it gently, asked Arnold where it hurt, tested the range of motion, and then Dr. Patterson sat down. "It's dislocated," Dr. Patterson said. "The shoulder joint is partially dislocated. It's not completely out, but it's severely subluxated. You have inflammation, swelling, and significant structural damage." Arnold said nothing, just listened. "You cannot compete today," Dr. Patterson said firmly. "If you go on that stage, if you try to pose, if you put any stress on that shoulder, you could cause permanent damage. We're talking about potential nerve damage, potential long-term disability. You could end your career." Still, Arnold said nothing. "I'm serious," Dr. Patterson continued. "This is not something you can push through. This is not something you can tape up and ignore. Your shoulder needs immediate medical attention. You need an X-ray. You need an MRI. You need professional orthopedic evaluation. You cannot compete today." Dr. Patterson was adamant. He wasn't suggesting. He was telling Arnold what had to happen. "If you compete," Dr. Patterson said, "you do so against medical advice. You do so at your own risk. And if something happens, if you cause permanent damage, that's on you, not on me. I won't be responsible for ending your career because you made a stupid decision." Arnold looked at the doctor. For a moment, they just stared at each other. "I understand," Arnold said quietly. "Do you?" Dr. Patterson asked. "Because I don't think you do. You're thinking about your legacy. You're thinking about defending your title. You're thinking about not disappointing people. But you're not thinking about your future. You're not thinking about the rest of your life after today." Arnold said nothing. Dr. Patterson left the room, but not before saying one more thing. "If you compete today, don't come to me afterward, because I'll have told you not to." Arnold was alone again. He sat on the edge of the bed and stared at his swollen shoulder. It hurt to even look at it. The pain was constant, throbbing, overwhelming. He had trained for this for 6 months. He had prepared his body. He had been dominant in training. He was going to win. He knew it. Everyone knew it. But not like this. Not with destroyed shoulder. Arnold thought about what the doctor had said, about permanent damage, about ending his career, about the rest of his life. He thought about calling the promoter, telling them he couldn't compete, apologizing to the audience, explaining that he was injured. He thought about the right thing to do, the smart thing to do, the thing a reasonable person would do. And then he made a decision. He made it silently, without telling anyone, without discussing it with his team, without asking permission. He simply decided he was going to compete, not because he was arrogant, not because he was stupid, but because he understood something that the doctor didn't understand. He understood that sometimes the biggest risk isn't taking a chance. The biggest risk is not taking a chance. If he withdrew today, yes, he would protect his shoulder, But he would also send a message to the bodybuilding world that he could be broken, that he could be stopped, that he was vulnerable. And once that message was sent, it would never go away. Arnold spent the next hour preparing mentally. He didn't call anyone. He didn't tell anyone. He simply sat in his hotel room and made peace with the decision. He got dressed, carefully put on his shirt, a loose shirt that wouldn't put pressure on the shoulder. He taped the shoulder himself, not to hide it, but to provide some structural support, some stability. Then he covered the tape with a jacket. Nobody needed to see it. Nobody needed to know. When his team arrived to pick him up, they saw nothing unusual. Arnold looked fine. His demeanor was calm. Nothing suggested that he had just spent the morning being told he couldn't compete. "How are you feeling?" his trainer asked as they drove to the venue. "Good," Arnold said simply. "Ready." His trainer didn't ask any follow-up questions. He didn't know about the doctor's visit. He didn't know about the dislocated shoulder. Arnold had made sure of that by deciding to keep it completely secret. The backstage area at Mr. Olympia was controlled chaos. Athletes everywhere. Preparation happening. Energy building. Arnold moved through it silently. He didn't interact much. Didn't explain anything. Just prepared. His trainer tried to help him with his pump-up routine, but Arnold waved him away. "I got it," Arnold said. "Just let me do my thing." Arnold was alone. Completely alone with the knowledge that his shoulder could give out at any moment, with the knowledge that the next 2 hours could either secure his legacy or end his career. There was no middle ground. There was no partial success. Either he would pose perfectly, controlling the pain, hiding the injury, winning the competition, or he would fail spectacularly. The injury would be revealed, and his career would potentially be over. The medical staff did a quick check-in with all competitors. They looked at Arnold. He looked fine. No visible injuries. No problems. They moved on. Arnold's secret was still safe. As he waited to go on stage, Arnold did something most people don't do in high-stress moments. He did nothing. He didn't psych himself up. He didn't get angry. He didn't try to build adrenaline. He simply breathed, and he accepted what was about to happen. When his name was called, Arnold walked on stage. The crowd erupted immediately. There was love here, recognition, respect for a champion. Arnold took his position on stage, and then he began his poses. This is where it would have been obvious to anyone paying attention that something was wrong. His right shoulder couldn't move the way it normally moved. His arm couldn't extend fully. His bicep pose, usually one of his most impressive, was compromised. But what nobody realized was that Arnold had spent the morning preparing for exactly this. Instead of fighting the limitation, he accepted it. Instead of trying to hide it by overcompensating, he found new angles, new positions, new ways to show his body that didn't require full shoulder mobility. He changed his routine on the fly, modified his posing, created variations that actually made his physique look even more impressive because they were so unexpected. The other competitors were confused. They knew Arnold's routine. They had studied it. They had prepared for it. But this wasn't his routine. This was something different. And it was devastating. Because what Arnold had done was take his weakness and turn it into his greatest strength. He had taken the limitation imposed by the injury and used it to showcase his incredible body control. Most bodybuilders would have looked weak. Most would have looked like something was wrong. But Arnold looked like he was executing the most controlled, most precise, most impressive posing routine of his life. Every movement was deliberate. Every transition was smooth. Every position was held with perfect form. And the crowd felt it. The judges felt it. Even the other competitors felt it. This wasn't a champion struggling. This was a champion in complete control. When Arnold finished his posing round, the energy on stage was electric. The judges were scribbling notes furiously. The crowd was on their feet, and Arnold walked backstage, his arm hanging carefully at his side. The pain now overwhelming, but the performance complete. The moment he was out of view, his face changed. The control dropped. The pain took over. He sat down carefully, breathing heavily, understanding exactly how much damage he had just put his shoulder through. His trainer rushed over. "You okay?" "You look—" "I'm fine," Arnold said. "Just tired." But Arnold wasn't fine. His shoulder was screaming. Every nerve ending was firing. He could feel the inflammation getting worse. But the posing was done. When the judges announced the results, it was unanimous. Arnold had won. Every single judge had placed him first. It wasn't even close. But here's what nobody knew until years later. After the competition, Arnold had to get immediate medical attention. The shoulder damage was worse than the initial assessment. He had torn muscle fibers. He had inflamed ligaments. He had made the injury significantly worse by competing. The recovery took months. Real, painful, difficult months. And for a while, there was legitimate concern that Arnold might not compete again at the highest level. But he did recover. Completely. His shoulder healed. His strength returned. And his dominance continued. Years later, when journalists asked Arnold about that day, about competing with the dislocated shoulder, his answer was simple. "I made a choice," Arnold said. "The doctor told me not to compete. He was right from a medical standpoint. If I had listened to him, my shoulder would have healed faster. The smart choice was to withdraw, but the championship choice was to compete. And I had to decide which was more important to me." "But you could have been permanently injured," the journalist said. "I could have been," Arnold agreed. "But I also could have lost something that was even more important, my identity as a champion. Sometimes, the biggest risk isn't taking a chance. The biggest risk is not taking a chance. The biggest risk is playing it safe when everything inside you is telling you to go all in." The shocking truth came later, when Dr. Patterson, Arnold's team doctor, was interviewed about that day. "I was furious," Dr. Patterson said. "I told him explicitly not to compete, and he competed anyway. I thought he was insane. I thought he was throwing away his career for one trophy. But he won," the interviewer said. "He won," Dr. Patterson confirmed. "And he did it while hiding a serious shoulder injury. He did it while in significant pain. He did it by using incredible control and precision instead of raw power. It was the most impressive performance I've ever seen from an athlete, not because of the physical dominance, but because of the mental control. He controlled the pain instead of letting the pain control him." That became the real story of that day. Not that Arnold had competed injured, but that he had competed injured and won. That he had taken the biggest risk possible and pulled it off perfectly. And in doing so, he had created one of the most legendary moments in bodybuilding history. The day he shouldn't have competed. The day the doctor told him his career could end. The day he decided that sometimes the biggest loss is not taking a chance. And in taking that chance, in risking everything, Arnold had proven something fundamental about himself. He proved that he wasn't just a great bodybuilder. He was a great competitor. He was someone who could face impossible odds, control the pain, and still execute perfectly. That day, Arnold learned something that would define the rest of his life. Sometimes, the right decision looks like the wrong decision. Sometimes, the smart move is the one that everyone tells you not to make. And sometimes, the only way to become legendary is to do the thing that should break you and find a way to make it work anyway. He shouldn't have competed that day. And that's exactly why he had to.